Yeah, certainly faced headwinds, and I questioned if I really wanted this, but I was willing to kind of burn the boats.
I mean, it's a huge year for you. Like, you got married, you paid off your student loan, you bought a house on 8 acres. Huge year.
I'm definitely all in on this business. I will say in 24 too, like we did different deal types. I did some lot clearing and perk tests and road building, and we just bought a cabin for an 81 acre rec land hunting parcel.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Apke, joined today by Justyn Bostic. Justyn's been a student for a couple years now, and we had you in the podcast I guess it was just in March, correct, Justyn?
Yeah, this past March.
Yeah, happy to have you back. I know I wanted to get you back because you've had a lot happen since then for sure. Get an update on your land business, see where you are. But welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Excited for today.
So let's talk let's kind of backtrack. Let's talk about 2023 a little bit. Do you know when you joined the program first off?
Yeah, so I joined the program at the beginning of 23. It was January, February range.
Okay.
And I sent out my first mail. It would have been in April. I was checking those dates last night.
So you joined in January 2023 and had a really big 2023. Let's just give a 50,000 foot high level of what 2023 looked like. If you guys want to get more detail, watch his podcast from March.
Yeah, so first 6 months was challenging, and it took me 6 months to get paid, but was very committed to the process, had a lot of time to sink into land, and we generated 9 deals, did 6 through maturity on around 25,000 pieces of mail. So we were doing about 1 deal for every 2,600 mailers, and we generated $280K in gross deal profit and $260 net to us after those properties, the last 3 dispoed at the beginning of this year.
So you only had $20,000 of expenses. So you were pretty efficient with your mail, a deal for every 2,500 mailers, doing some bigger deals, right?
Yeah. We averaged about 37K profit per deal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we were being very efficient with mail, and just like I was super aggressive on the acquisition side and follow-ups and meeting with sellers, and really just leaning into my edge of trying to address my fear around sales and improve as a salesman. And so if you're interested, we went into more detail on the first podcast, but I was cold calling and really just trying to lean into those edges of improving as a salesperson.
I think that's probably the one thing that I've quoted from, and Anthony does it all the time. I hear him say it. I think that's the one thing that I've quoted from your first podcast more than anything else from your first podcast, was that you cold called people not to get deals necessarily, but to dive into that discomfort. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, as I think about success in performance in different areas of life, whether you're an athlete or in your diet or in your business, I think a lot of how I look at success is building skill sets and acquiring mastery in those skill sets. And so I knew I had a big gap in that skill set. And so I pretty much charted a roadmap on what would it take for me to lean in and grow in this realm that I'm inexperienced in. And for me, it felt like time under tension, the same way, in the gym or with my diet, time, eating the right things. And so pretty much, I just spent a lot of time on the phones. And by doing that, I could understand more how to frame the offer that we were offering in the marketplace, and also how sellers respond to, what our offer is, and knowing that it's not for everybody, but for the people that it is for, we're ready to serve them. And, we're going to step to that opportunity.
How much do you think that cold calling expedited the improvement in your sales? Not just skills, but comfortability. Because some people some people can do things in 6 months that other people would take 6 years to do. And I think that's a situation. Like, it might have taken you 3-4 years to get the skills that you got in a very short period of time because you were making those outbound dials. How fast did that expedite your skill growth? Or can you quantify that at all?
Yeah, I think very rapidly. I'm not sure if I can quantify it other than, when I first started with cold calling, I used to get hung up on pretty quickly. And by the end of it, I was able to hold a 10-minute conversation with somebody who maybe didn't even want to sell, but had rejections at the beginning of the call that I was able to overcome. And so I was able to understand how to redirect conversations and just more conversation dynamics. And so I felt more comfortable slowing the conversation down and finding areas that I could serve that seller. So I think those are more like, qualitative aspects to the conversation, but, just in terms of quantity, I was doing like 50 dials a day for, a month long period. And when you do that level of calls, you start to get a lot more comfortable with calling people back very quickly, following up with people. And I'm learning in real estate, in this off market, deal machine business, you almost want to be a little bit annoying to the seller to the point that they ask you to either slow down, take them off their list. It sort of shamelessly the fool in these conversations. And hey, just following up, wanted to chat about this thing. I found good success doing that.
Yeah, and so many people are scared of hearing the word no from a seller, from whatever, or just like, stop calling me, dude. People are so scared of that, so they're scared to, and then you have people who are scared to pitch because they're scared, and then you never get the yes. And that's what I think, like, for one thing, like pitching double closing. I think a lot of people have fear around like pitching double closing. I see that a ton. And there's just different negotiating down when you over offer. Talk about how that kind of helped you in 2023 in terms of, is there any real world experience like this deal that I overpriced or something like this and I made happen?
Yeah, so we ended up doing a novation deal, which, in our case required the seller to sign a limited power of attorney. And I had just met this person over the phone. And so, early on there was it was a bigger parcel priced at like $400,000 on the buy side. And we thought we could potentially entitle the deal. And so I needed a lot of time with this seller. And just by having those reps on the phone and understanding, I think another part is understanding what you're able to actually offer, So it's like, how could you possibly come to that seller with giving them an offer on a double close or a novation or an entitlement deal or a seller finance, something that's non-traditional than the flip model, if you don't fully understand it. So a lot of the back end too is like understanding how the mechanics of that deal work and having somebody in your corner that you can sort of reference to and explain it back to so it makes sense to them and they give you feedback on how to pitch that deal. And so I think having like a community or coach is pretty important on that front. But then when you're in that call and you feel, or you're leading up to that call and you feel that fear about how you're going to pitch this thing, I think it's just, calling out, I'm at my edge right now and I'm going to show myself courage. And I think by doing that and having the awareness in that moment, you're able to kind of push through that uncomfortability of the first 10 seconds of the call. And once you get going, it just starts flowing. So, I think it's just being willing to be the fool in that conversation. And if they have questions that they're asking clarification on that you don't have a response to, let them know you'll get back to them and circle up and use that as an opportunity to build rapport on a second call.
That's a really good point, and like being willing to do that for sure. You said at the start, like first 6 months were rough, and like getting through those. A lot of people, like I think you talked about in the first time, like there's a chance you could have quit. Like some people would have quit in your situation after the first 6 months. Did you get a deal in your first 6 months, or was it like those first 6 months and no deals yet?
Yeah, so I ended up closing one deal in my first 6 months on the buy side and sell side. So I closed the deal about 4.5 months in on the buy side, and then it took a month and a half for that to sell on the sell side. But yeah, certainly faced headwinds and I questioned if I really wanted this, but I was willing to kind of burn the boats and I really wanted to work for myself and have the freedom in my time and how I generated my money. So I was willing to kind of stick with it and see it through.
Were you ever working a W-2 job while you're doing land?
Mostly when I was just studying.
Okay.
And so, once I said, hey, I'm going to do this business model, that's when I pivoted from working in construction and renovating multifamily buildings in Columbus into just running the deal machine full time. I did not have a lot of runway. I had probably 10K in the bank and I had a home equity line of credit and some credit cards that were 0% for my business that I could put marketing on. And so my first deal I funded on that HELOC and my mail I funded on those, 0% cards. And that was the way I funded the business to start. And, thankfully got through that trough of disillusionment in that first 6 months.
So you made $260,000 your first year, 2023, essentially, in net. Talk about what that did for you, just your life, ability to go more all into this business, just what it did for you in 2024, because that's a lot of money. Like a lot of people, like if I could make $260,000 in 2025, a lot of people would sign up for that instantly. And you did that in your first year in land. Talk about what that money did for you, not necessarily, more so from a personal side.
Yeah, 100%. So we're now near the end of 2024, and I've been reflecting on this year. And every year I set a word or an intention for that year. So in 2023, my word was courage. And that was, a big thing about starting my business, going off on my own. In 2024, that word was abundance. And I definitely got my fair taste of abundance this year. With that money, I was able to pay off my student loans, was able to buy a house with my wife. We actually also got married this year, and we're a part of 2 other weddings. And so this was a year where, I really got to reinvest some of my earnings back into my life, because we were making some lifestyle sacrifices in the years prior, having a house with 4 bedrooms where we're renting every roommate to a bedroom. And those are big asks, for example, in my relationship with my wife. And so, it was like we had this dream that we wanted to buy this farm. And we were able to, buy that farm this year. And so we were able to achieve some of the dreams that we had set years ago, that we were really charting course for 4 or 5 years ago, and to see those into form and manifested in our wedding and moving, it's been an absolute game changer. And, a lot of that is because of land.
Yeah.
It's because I took the leap, and, I feel so grateful. Sometimes I get caught up in maybe, not being as high of a level of an operator in land that I want to be, because I know where there's no ceiling on this business, really. But I look back and realize how far I've come and the opportunities that it's created for me on the life front. And, I just can't understate like how much it's changed my life, how much your guys' program has changed my life.
So looking back, I guess we're close to 2 years since you joined the program. Like looking back, is this something you saw yourself being at 2 years after joining the program and starting in land investing, or is it like a dream of yours, or like where does that stack up? Did you have bigger goals than what you hit, or what does that stack up look like?
Yeah, if you told me 2 years ago this is where I'd be, I would be the happiest guy in the world.
Sign up
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, 100%. And I had these big dreams and a lot of audaciousness behind my dreaming in my life. And a willingness to put in that work. But I was not sure if it was actually going to work out coming into a new business. I hadn't ran an off-market deal machine before, so I didn't understand the real mechanics for it. But once I understood how the business functioned and how there's so many different approaches to how you can support a seller on a deal, that started to open the doors where I was like, wow, there's really no ceiling on this business. And now my dreaming for the business is at a new level. I want to hit that 7-figure mark, and am really investing into the coaching and the community right now to get me there.
That's awesome. So, I mean, it's a huge year for you. Like you got married, you paid off your student loan, you bought a house on 8 acres, which I don't think you said the acreage, but you bought a farmhouse on 8 acres. Which we talked about off camera. Like huge year of like the abundance word is perfect. What's your word for 2025?
Yeah. So my word for 25 is clarity. And if I had to give a second word, it would be delegate.
Okay.
So, a lot of 24 was honestly getting drawn into some of the challenges of the business. I hired and tried to scale amidst all of these life events going on. And I did not do a great job of managing those resources. What I've learned is that sort of the posture that I brought to 2023 and how that's different than this year and what I can bring next year is really like as a business owner, not getting bogged down by the challenges, not getting sort of eaten alive by your business and having really a glorified job. But to be a business owner means to rise above those challenges, to be able to have the clarity to see it at 1,000 feet and know what operational changes you need to make and what you need to get off your plate. And so I did not do an effective job at being clear on what those things were that I needed to build as far as systems or roles that I needed to hire, and then ultimately delegating that out and seeing that process through to a new individual on the team.
So what does clarity look like in your mind? You talked a lot about delegate there. What is clarity? Just like vision, everything like that?
Yeah, so I recently joined the Action Academy program ran by Brian Lubin, and there's a few other LIO members that have been in it. And so part of that program is defining your vivid vision. And so I got really clear with what the perfect day looks like for me and the lifestyle that I'm dreaming up. But more mechanically on a business level, it's like understanding what my lead metrics are that our company is driving for in our KPIs. So last time I was on the show, you guys asked me what my KPIs were, and I gave you, a high level answer about like deals converted. But now I understand, it's data downloaded, data processed, data priced, mail sent, time it took to call back the seller. Like very at every step of this process, like we need to be tracking what that is. And there needs to be an individual who knows that they're accountable for pushing that thing along. And to this point, it's been a lot of me pushing things along. And so I think a lot of clarity means, at least to start this year, very much communicating with my team, hey, you're accountable for this KPI, and then following up with that in a meeting cadence, making sure they feel prepared, and then really letting the team member let me know if they want to step to this this opportunity or not. If they want to drag their feet, then that's okay. Like we'll kind of go another direction.
So let's talk about real fast what your 2024 looked like, because you took I don't want to say you took a step back, but as far as like you could just you did very similar numbers in terms of what you did. Let's talk about your mail volume, what kind of your monthly stuff looked like, and then talk about your deal volume.
Yeah, for sure. So, when we finished the podcast, it was about March, and around that time, I ended up hiring a texter. And trying to bring texting online. I already had a data cleaner and pricer and kind of data processor. And then my younger brother graduated from school in May, and he also jumped on to the team as well. And so I was very aggressively trying to scale my mail operations, get it to 10,000 mailers a month. And we were hitting that metric where, we were getting our mail out, and we also switched over from blind offers to range offers because, my hope was, hey, more opportunity to chat with the seller, put something into contract. And we actually had more leads than we could underwrite and manage and make offers to, which was a great problem to have. The issue is that we just didn't effectively manage those leads. I had a couple deals fall through this year, which, I don't think with the level of focus I had in 23 would have happened. But all of that's just learnings. Yeah. And really, just kind of taking full responsibility for that and saying, how can I change and adjust the system so that we can make sure we're getting offers out in 48 hours and we're following up with these sellers on a regular cadence, just so we can convert more opportunities and sort of apply that mindset of being really aggressive on the acquisition side. So as far as mail numbers this year, going back to the original question, we did 42,000 mailers this year.
All ranged?
Yeah, all range offers. We may have done blind offer at the beginning of the year. We switched probably around April. And then we ended up generating 6 deals. One of them is a hold. The other 5, I'm still currently dispoing. Very conservatively, I would say that they're going to gross $270,000 in deal profit. And then net to me, that would probably be about 200.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, nothing's wrong with that in terms of everything else that happened as well. And I think the credit to you, like so many lessons learned in 2024, I think, like trying to scale maybe too fast or trying to delegate without having the KPIs or the expectations with the employees. What does your team currently look like? Because you can talk about it if you want, as far as like you split ways with your brother in terms of it just wasn't a good fit. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest learnings was, when I hired him, I had hired for a role to grow the texting function of the business, have him sort of be in an appointment setting role, eventually a closer role. I thought, hey, sales isn't my master skill set, and maybe I want to try and hire this thing out. And very quickly realized, like, if this is, that's where money's made in this business. And so I need to be in that function, at least for right now. And so, when I hired him, the intent was really strong as far as like what his roles were. Everything was pretty well defined, but he slowly realized he didn't want to do the sales function. And so I tried to pivot him into a more of a management role and scaling our operations. But it just wasn't ultimately going to work as far as, we need to sell more deals to make the money to support kind of more admin-based roles. And so now the team has scaled. We scaled up to 3 people, and then now we scaled back down to 1 data cleaner processor, which now I'm sort of pivoting them more into a marketing manager role where they're going to be responsible for everything from data download to, buying the mail and seeing that merge proof through sending point. And then, aspirations to have a sort of a acquisition manager at some point this year once we start exiting some of these deals. So, back to the original question, it was like 40,000 mailers, 6 deals, and we generated, about 270 in deal profit.
And you have a long-term hold in there as well. Is that
we
correct?
have a long-term hold. Yeah.
What's that look like?
It's just a 6-acre property that's like right up against about like 4,800 acres of state forest land.
Oh, wow.
And I just love a property like that. It's got a beautiful creek on it, walks right into the state park. There's never going to be development there. So I just want to hold it. Maybe we'll do something with it down the road.
Nothing's wrong with that. Sometimes you get deals across your plate. You're like, yeah, I got to hold this one. And yeah, I don't blame you for that one. Yeah, I think when hiring, it's so important to hire, and you probably learned this with your brother, like hiring people who are passionate about what their role is going to be, hiring people who want to sell, hiring people because salespeople want to make money. Like if I talk to Ben about videography, like he gets so uber excited about videography and stuff like that. Like he is insanely passionate. Like I never have doubt Ben enjoys doing this stuff. Ben enjoys setting up our podcast, do everything like that. And that's what you want with every position, like people who get excited about what their role is. And I think that was a good learning lesson for you.
Yeah, I think it's something I'm still going to be learning over the process. And I'm really committing myself to being a better manager and having a real plan behind, what that execution looks like this year.
So what have you done so far? Is like, I know 2024 wasn't what you hoped in terms of your business. You did so much other stuff, like I've said multiple times. Are you like ready to hit the ground running right now in terms of the land business 2025?
Yeah, I'm definitely all in on this business in 2025. And, I can share some of my goals, but I will say in 24 too, like we did different deal types. So originally it was just all flips in 23. So this year I did some lot clearing and perk tests and road building, and we just bought a cabin for an 81 acre rec land hunting parcel. And so really trying to figure out what that standard operating procedure looks like so that I can hire it out, how much it actually costs to do that. So that if we know we're going into a deal and we think we can exit that deal at a higher price point by doing these minor improvements, we can line that work up before we end up closing on the buy side. And so I want to bring more efficiency to the value add process. And so there was a lot of kind of learning through that process this year, getting a lot of quotes from land clearing companies, understanding what type of gravel you're dropping for a driveway, good cabin suppliers, those kind of just little things and how to structure that system, I think is really going to serve us in 25. And so my goals in 25 is I'd like to do anywhere between 25 and 30 deals. And of those deals, I'd love to do 15 just traditional flips, 5 to 10 value adds, 5 to 10 subdivides. And the other thing I mentioned in 24 is we also did a lot split this year, and that was a cool process to learn as well. So
that cabin, so you bought 81 acres and you bought a cabin to bring to the property to put on the property. Talk about those numbers in terms of like how much value add that is. Can you break down those numbers a little bit for me?
Yeah, so we bought this parcel at like 1,700 an acre, and unimproved land that's greater than 50 acres in this specific market, we're estimating an exit around 2,500 an acre, maybe 3,000 on the high side. But then when you start to investigate some of the comps that are improved, specifically around hunting, where they have food plots set up and feeders and different hunting stands and trail systems built out, they're getting that $3,500 to $4,000 mark per acre. And so my intent with this, instead of just quickly listing this product back on the market and kind of pricing it aggressively on that, maybe we'll call it 2,500 to 3,000 range, by just putting in, we put probably about $4,000 into the gravel, and road or cab or sorry, the cab. Not the cabin. We put about $4,000 into the gravel. And then the cabin was about $10,500 in the sticker price. We ended up finding someone that was doing a 20% off sale, and they also sold it to us on terms. So I came into that cabin probably about $900 to close the cabin.
Wow.
We'll probably pay $600 in interest or fees if we hold the property for 6 months, but that price is ultimately going to get assumed by the buyer's purchase price. And then we can push that purchase price closer to that $3,000 to $3,500. So, it's a hypothesis right now, but the comps do tell a story. And so, we want to lean into kind of that middle of the road hunting property that is improved, is this blank canvas for somebody to come in and design their oasis that they've worked really hard for.
So like buy 130, 135, maybe if my math's right, with 1,700, put $14,000 into it, just unassuming the interest and all that in terms of the, you had financing on it. So then you'll be able to sell it for what? Like you said, whatever, 240 to 280, somewhere in there?
Yeah. So we'll probably price this at 280, and I still think that's a pretty aggressive price on it.
So you're going to be all in for 150, essentially sell it for 280.
Yeah.
That's all. The ability to do small, like that's a small value add. It's not like you're building a house. You're not doing anything crazy. Like it's $15,000 value add and you're adding whatever $60,000 of equity. So the ability to do that, it makes this business so much more scalable to do more deals. Yeah, it might take more time per deal, but there's more sellers out there because you're offering closer to market value, essentially. Same thing with subdivides, like we talk about. If you can offer 80% of market value on a subdivide, you're going to get a lot more deals if you can make the money work on the back end. And that's what you're doing. And I think having more avenues to do that, like you are with that kind of stuff. Are you targeting that kind of stuff, or how did this deal come about?
It just came through, traditional flipping mail. And so, just sending it out for a traditional flip
Yeah.
and pricing kind of aggressively. And then we look at the property and underwriting and see the story in our comps. And we're like, hey, I think that this is going to be potentially a good value add. And I had set my intention to explore this in 2024. And so, I went back and forth a few times before pulling the trigger, and I wish that there wasn't that kind of lag time between when you close the property and when you make the decision to do this value add. That was like a 20-day lag time. Moving forward, I want to know exactly what I'm doing with the deal before we close it, if we're going to add any value or we're going to put it right on the market. So that was kind of like one of the bigger learning elements. But I am trying to really build different streams of mail right now to address the lot split, to address the flip, to address a value add deal. And the other thing too is, I can show sellers some of these projects and show them, hey, we're doing some improvements, and the likelihood that they may want to sell to me, I think increases in that.
For sure. And there's so many more potential sellers, I think, when you are offering more, obviously, per acre, stuff like that, and offering, because you were offering 75% of market value, essentially, if you're saying 1,700 and 2,500 or so about. So yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I like that a lot. What are some of the hiccups in doing that for the first time? Because I'm sure it wasn't as clean as what you're saying here in terms of laying down gravel, finding a cabin. That's a cheap ass cabin. But that's awesome that you found that. But what were some of the hiccups, like the unexpected time that it took, or other things that came up?
Yeah. So specifically learned this year with lot clearing, typically in the contracting world, you're going to get like 3 quotes from somebody before you move anything forward and schedule that job up. I ended up reaching out to probably 10 different land clearing groups throughout the state, and really wanted to find a strategic partner that we could bring on for additional projects. And so ended up building a great relationship with this team that doesn't live too far from where I actually live. And they gave us a price of like $3,500 an acre for clearing, which was pretty competitive. I had some people, offering like $12,000 to clear the lot. And so there was a ton of variance in pricing on the clearing job specifically. And then on the gravel job, there was a lot of learning on just the different types of gravel that we could use. And so I really leaned on some of the knowledge of the gravel company that I was calling and speaking with. And then actually I had the intent for the gravel company to come out and pour the gravel right out of the truck and drive away. But it was raining and kind of soiled our plan, and I needed to get that drive in that day. So I rented the skid steer myself and put the drive in myself. And that was, its own learning as like, hey, maybe I want to line up a crew to install this driveway, because that just isn't a scalable model for me to be running a skid steer. It was super fun, but it's not a good business decision. So I think the main thing was like at every step in this process, I've been trying to document and really understand pricing, because, for example, going into the gravel job, I thought the gravel was going to cost us around $6,500, and on the high end, maybe 10 grand when I was reading all the stuff online. But then when you actually get into the practice of it and you're installing the drive and, things start coming together, it was like only $4 grand for that entire project with the skid steer. And I was like, wow, this is way cheaper. So now I can come in with a little bit more confidence on what that pricing looks like, and we can price that out while we're underwriting a deal.
I'm sure that construction background helps a lot in this kind of stuff, talking to these people, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's a different mindset and mentality working with contractors, and I think you got to really meet them where they're at and make sure you pay very quickly, and just be on it with communication.
What do you? I know Brian talks about vivid vision and stuff. Do you have like a 5-year? Like, what's your goal? Like, we're talking about 2025. Like, where do you want to be 5 years from now?
Yeah. So, my wife and I's dream is that we want to run a regenerative homestead with animals and beautiful gardens. And potentially, buy the land next to us and build like a little retreat center, resort. We're both really into personal and spiritual development. So we'd love to have sort of a community building space that's very close to our house where we can serve our community in that way. And so that's the dream in 5 years, and what I'm really trying to build toward. I think land is the main vehicle that I want to use to create the financial freedom to get there. So a lot of the mechanism of land is really investing these profits back into rentals, into more real estate in the city, and just building cash flow so that we can support ourselves on the cash flow from our real estate, and then ultimately be very passionate about our lives and how we contribute to the world.
What because we talked about marketing obviously. What are your marketing strategies or like goals on a monthly basis going in 2025? Anything you're changing?
Yeah, so I think the main thing I'm changing is how we execute. To have the goal to hit 10,000 mailers a month is just a goal,
Yeah.
but to actually have the KPI dashboard that you look at every week, and holding your team accountable to those things. I think I tolerated maybe feet dragging a lot more than I should have. And very much I'm looking for A players this year that really want to grow with this business. And I'm willing to, try numerous hires before we get to that point. So that's kind of how my hiring strategy is changing for us to meet those goals. But I'd like to do, as far as my marketing strategy, I'd like to do 15,000 pieces of mail a month, 10,000 devoted toward flips, 5,000 devoted toward lot splits / value add projects. And then I'd love to do 10,000 text follow-ups. And so the goal right now is to just get that machine moving in Q1. And then in Q2, we can make the adjustments that we need to make.
That's awesome. If you can keep up with that, that's gonna be huge results. You talked about community a little bit as far as like people being around you. I know you joined Action Academy, which is a more broad business group. Just talk about putting the people around you, not necessarily people in your company, but people around you who can motivate you. So like you talk to some people, they're doing 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 texts a month. And I know the people you're talking about, Landon's one of them, I'm sure. But yeah, talk about just surrounding yourself with the right people and the importance in it.
Yeah, definitely. I was a wrestler growing up,
Yeah.
and that was like my life and my sport. And something I learned in that sport was just that the quality of training partner that you had. Like if you were sparring with the best guys in the room, you were sparring with the guys who were competing at the highest level in the state, the highest level in the nation. That's the level you'd eventually you rise to in your competition. And so I'm very much invested into finding other people who are willing to put in the work, who have the discipline, and who are also staying positive as they're kind of taking these lumps in the land business, who are really committed themselves to the process. And I found that in the Action Academy, and I've gotten to hop into a pod is what they call it. It's kind of like an accountability group with Landon and Dylan and a gentleman named Brian and another kid named Jake, and these guys are awesome. And realizing I was very humbled coming into that group and saying, like, hey, I had these big aspirations, but I'm seeing these guys deal machines and putting a deal into contract a week. And I'm realizing that there's another level here. And so right now I'm very much in the learning mode, very much have been humbled by realizing that I have a lot of growth yet. And I'm really excited to see what the other side of that kind of investment of time and energy looks like, being surrounded by people who are really driving and kind of, trailblazers in the land space.
Yeah, I think some people like surround themselves with people lower than them because it makes them feel good. Other people who like want to grow. If you want to grow, surround yourself with people who are ahead of you, 2 years ahead, not even 2 years, but just in general, they're ahead of you. They're doing more. Like, okay, these people can help, and you're going to help them in different ways as well. But surrounding yourself, guys, with people who are doing big things is so important. It changes your mindset. Like that first meeting you had with them, and Landon told you like he's doing 50,000 texts a month. Like that's just like, okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's just the reality of it. Like that's what can happen. You can be doing 5, 10, 20 deals a month. Like it's not an unattainable thing by any means. What are your thoughts? How has the land industry first changed since you joined in early 2023? What have you seen change? Strategies that have changed? What have you kind of noticed?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing is there's more market entrants, and because of that, I think it's more critical than ever to really have a sales process ironed out and a proper follow-up cadence and a way to build rapport with the sellers and to be tracking your KPIs on the acquisition side of things. And so I've seen that evolve where, there was times that I would just get signed PAs back in 23. That was not the case this year. We had a couple, but they weren't great deals. Whereas last year, those were smoking deals. And so I think that, the other thing that I've noticed is there's probably a lot more opportunity because there's more knowledge sharing right now about value add, about minor lot splits, about subdivides. And I'm really excited to see more knowledge get disseminated through the land groups and see more people reaching for these 18-month long entitlement deals and starting to put those deals together. And that's something that I'd like to be doing. And so I think almost finding the niche that really resonates with you, it would be really great to, sort of back your marketing into what that value add niche looks like in your land business. I think that has made it more fun for me getting to do some of these kind of projects, and also has really pushed me to grow in how I change my marketing and involve my marketing. Because if I just continue to do what I'm doing, I'm going to get the same result that I've done before. And so, I want to continue to tweak that so that I can bring the deals in that we like to work, that we feel very confident in, that we can underwrite very confidently.
So going into that or going beyond that, as far as like if you were to give advice to someone who is looking to get started in land, maybe right now, maybe early 2025, what would be your like one piece of advice for them?
I think a lot of it has to do with rising above resistance and what I'm learning, being surrounded by other land investors who maybe are a step ahead of me, is that at every level there's another devil. Like at the cash constraint that you had when you started, it just is a bigger cash constraint now that you're 2 years in. Finding better deal funding, like that's always a thing that I'm learning and growing. And so I think the biggest thing is like when you face that resistance, being sure that you're meeting that with positivity and realizing that this is what growth feels like. And it requires courage for you to step forward and to actually try these things, to make an offer to somebody. And so if you're getting into it, I think the biggest thing is like, first of all, investing into learnings. That's something you guys highlight, and I can't highlight it enough so you understand what's going on mechanically in these deals. But then also just not letting resistance slow you down and stop you. And being honest with yourself. That was a big thing for me this year about how much time I could actually give to this business. Just because there are other people that are doing massive, marketing and deal machines doesn't mean that that's what you should be doing right now in your business. And so I think really structuring your business so that it suits you and your goals and your lifestyle goals. And then, really rising above any challenges that get in the way.
Yeah, I think just in general, like it's with everything in life, like continued learning is so important. And the people who struggle in this business and entrepreneurship as a whole, they just like stop learning, stop adjusting, stop like if you didn't keep learning, like you would have never put a cabin on a property, or like you wouldn't be attacking different deals. And like that's how you grow in this business and any business. And I was thinking when you were talking to the previous answer as far as like lot splits, all this stuff. Like Daniel and I, when we created Land Investing Online, we were very like, let's not name this flipping, because it's not always just going to be flipping. Like we're going to teach people how to buy land at under market value. Sometimes it's 80%, sometimes it's 40%, but it's not always just flipping. Like it's land investing online for a reason. That's why we named it that, because it's not just flipping. And these entitlement deals, these subdivides, adding cabins, stuff like that, like that's the future of this business. Like being able to add just a little bit of value for sure. Some deals are going to come. You're like, I buy this for 100, I sell it for 200. This is great. It's a perfect seller. Are you adding, going off topic a little bit, are you adding double closing or anything? Has that been a strategy for you? I know you talked about your Novation deal a little bit. Anything with double closing going forward?
Yeah, I think that's something I really want to lean into in 2025. It was something that I hesitated around in 24. I think when I did that first Novation deal, there was a lot of time pressure to get this deal sold. And then if I didn't sell the deal, I did not have the contractual term that I could walk. So I would have had to raise the capital to take the deal down. And so now I understand how to structure a double close a little bit better, contractually speaking. And for that reason, we're going to lean into it more. We also did our first listings through List with Freedom, and have been working harder on my end to actually handle the dispo process in-house and understand what that's like, so we can know whether we want to hire a realtor on a property that's maybe a higher value or on a lower value property, just try and sell it ourselves. And so I think on some of these more lower value, lower margin deals, we're going to try to do more double closing this year, but it's not something I would say we've been super aggressive with implementing to this point.
Have you heard us talk about survey hacking?
Yeah, where you split off the lot from that.
What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, I think it's a great idea. I mean, as somebody who lives in a rural area and sees, some of the land where there's a home site and the land is not being used, I think it's a great opportunity and something I'm definitely going to explore on how to market in that way. But I think it's a phenomenal
Yeah,
prospect.
we're like we've ran into so many of those deals, and members have ran into so many deals. Like there needs to be a name for this, and I think Daniel and I were just sitting down, like we need to name this something, and like the amount of interest people have in this because it's an untouched thing. Like these people who own 30 acres, and maybe they don't want to manage the 28 acres around their house because whatever reason, and like just buying those 28 acres, like they love it. The offer is unbelievable, and for people who can adjust to that strategy, I think can make a ton of money. Daniel and I just had a YouTube live the other day. We were talking about like the niches in 2025. I think that was a huge one that we had. Minor subdividing we had as number one. Another one was high ticket double closing, like where you're targeting. Someone just did a double close. I think it was buy for 360 and sell for 500 or something like that. No money out
Oh
of their
wow.
pocket. So they made $140,000. They got the seller 360, and they made really good money. But yeah, I think there's so many different niches, and I think the people who are doing the best, I'm sure people in Action Academy or the people in the who are doing really well, like they're doing a lot of different strategies, right?
Yeah, and I'm finding, at least some of the land operators that I studied, double closing is a core of their business.
Mm.
And those guys are making, you know, the best out of every deal that comes across their desk. And so if there's a margin in there, that they're going to go attack that and try to double close it.
Yeah.
And so I think just having the conversation sort of talk track to walk a seller through, answer their questions, and understand how to position that deal so they understand it, I think is very critical to do it successfully. And that's something I'm going to be leaning into this year.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Anything else you want to touch on in terms of anything that we missed? We touch on a lot. It's looking back, it's like this only been 2 years. Like it's crazy your growth in just 2 years and how much you're pivoting, how much you're growing. And I know 2025 is going to be huge for you. Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think, just I want to send out some encouragement to the land community and really, encourage people to double down on this thing and to find community and other like-minded people that you can engage with this hustle and grow alongside. Because I think, I've been in the situation now where I've really had a tight community in land and then sort of was operating on an island this year and now have come back to community and just see how powerful that is as far as my motivation levels and really being surrounded with other people who are taking these kind of risks. And so, definitely want to encourage everyone to stick at it. And if I can be supportive on your journey, reach out. I love to connect. And just best of luck to everybody in 25.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Justyn. If you guys are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. Leave us a comment. Justyn's in our Discord. He's very accessible, very helpful for people. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, leave us a review, like the episode. Other than that, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.